Hello friends, today I am going to talk about a string versus a string in C sharp. A string that starts with a small s and other strings starts with the capital S. There are minute difference between them. In this video, we'll learn what both strings are and what's the difference between them. So before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell icon. That way, you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, without any further delay, let's get started. A string versus a string in C sharp. A string that starts with capital S is basically a class in the .NET framework in the system namespace. The fully qualified name is system.string. The string that starts with a small s is an alias of system.string. Okay, let's try to understand them with the help of example shown over here. In this example, I have declared s1 variable of a string where a string starts with a small s and assign the value high to it. That's what I have written, a string s1 is equal to high. Next, I have declared s2 variable of a string where a string starts with the capital S, and here I have assigned the value hello to it. That's what I wrote, string s2 is equal to hello. Then what I'm doing, I'm just printing them into the console window, and that's what I have written, console.writeline s1, console.writeline s2. And if you see the output, it is coming as a hi and hello. Then I just want to show that s1 is an alias of system.string, so I used getType.fullName. See the output, it prints system.string, and same goes with the s2 type full name also, but it is printing system.string. So both the statement print the same output, that is the system.string. We can confidently say that our statement is correct, which is a string that starts with the small s is an alias of the system.string. That's what, if you see the output, it is coming as a system.string. Both are pointing to the system.string only. In C sharp, we have many aliases that we use. Example, if you see alias byte, where byte start with the small b and .NET type is the system.byte, where byte start with the capital B, right? If you see the system.byte, here b is the capital one, which is of nothing but the type struct. Similarly, if you see this int alias, right, I start with the small s, and if you see this .NET type system.int32, here I start with the capital I, which is of nothing but system.int32, nothing but the struct type. So in C sharp, we have many aliases that is integrated in language for our simplicity. Difference between a string and a string. Here we are going to talk about the string that start with a small s and string that start with the capital S. Okay. The number one difference is a string that starts with a small s is a reserved keyword in C sharp, whereas a string that starts with the capital S is a class that we have already seen, right? Number two, system namespace is needed when we need to use the string class, where a string is nothing but start with the capital S. Okay, whereas a string keyword can be used directly without any namespace. It's very important. Whenever we are going to use the string class, we need to use system namespace imported. Then only we can use this string class successfully. Whereas the string keyword can be used directly without any namespace. Very important point. Number three, as a string is not a C sharp reserved keyword, it has no guaranteed meaning. What does it mean is, it is an identifier that can refer to anything and can vary depend on the context. You see this example, here what I have written, int string is equal to 10. What I am doing over here, I am just going to put variable name string of the int data type and storing the 10 value to it. It's valid to write because a string is identifier. It's not a reserved keyword over here. Please note that here I am talking about the capital S string. Okay. Next statement, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use this string plus 5. So a string value holds 10 value and a string plus 5, we are just going to do add operation over here. So 10 plus 5 is equal to 15, and that value I'm going to store into the output variable of the int data type. So it's a valid code, but it's a little bit confusing as we have an impression in our mind a string is a set of characters. So how come we are going to add with integer value 5 to it, right? It is just going to confuse us, right? So it's not possible to assume the meaning of the string identifier without fully understanding of the context of the code. That's where this string keyword comes into the picture. If you are going to use the string keyword, it does not have that type of issue. Okay, and if you see this example where string is equal to Ravi, so here s is the capital, so it's valid to write as a variable of the string. But if you try to write like this, where string is equal to Ravi, where s is a small, right, then it is just going to produce error at the compile time, because this string we cannot define as a variable, because this string where s is small is a reserved keyword. We cannot use as a variable, but there is an exception to it. If we are going to add at the rate symbol before that, so basically we are going to use the verbatim identifier. Okay, then it is valid to write where at the rate string is equal to Ravi, we can write it and it compiles successfully. Okay, so it's very important, you need to keep in mind. Number 4, a string that starts with a small s, which is an alias of the system.string class and cannot be used as a parameter of the name of expression. If you see this example shown over here, where a is equal to name of a string, s is nothing but the small s, right? Where a is equal to name of s, it is just going to give as a syntax error. We cannot write like this. But if we try to write like this, where b is equal to name of a string, where s is a capital S, then there is no issue at all. Compiler is not going to complain it, and it compiles perfectly fine. So here we are going to see the demo of the string versus a string demo. A string that starts with a small s and a string that starts with capital S. So for that I have created one console application, a string versus a string demo, that has program.cs file. In program.cs file, I have imported system namespace, and we have namespace string versus string demo. Inside that we have class program, and program has main method, which is an entry point of this application. So here I have written this console.writeLine string versus string demo, because I'm just going to give the demo of these two strings, right? So concept one, what I have done, I'm just going to use this string keyword, that is start with a small s. So string s1 is equal to hi, and capital S, string s2 is equal to hello. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to print into this console window. So here console.writeLine s1 and console.writeLine s2. Basically hi and hello should get printed. We will see. And then what I have done, I have used s1.getType.fullName to get the full qualified name. Okay, for this s1 that belongs to the string keyword, right? And this s2 belongs to the string class. Okay, so for that I have just used s1.getType.fullName and s2.getType.fullName. So ideally it should point to the system.string only. So this value should get printed. Either we go for the s1.getType.fullName or s2.getType.fullName. So this value should get printed. So next I'm just going to discuss about the concept. What is the concept 2? So here I'm just going to show, if you are going to write something like this, where a is equal to name of a string, where a string starts with the small s. So it is give us the syntax error. If you see here, this says that invalid expression term a string that starts with a small s we cannot write because it produces syntax error. So let me comment this. But it's valid to write name of system.string. It is just not giving the compile time error and also the syntax error, right? It will compile successfully. We will see. And then whatever the value that we are having for the name of operator, we are going to store into the b variable, and then I'm printing into this console window. So that is related to the concept 2. Now if you see this concept 3, here I'm just going to define the string to be an integer, as it is not a reserved key. So it's valid to write int a string that starts with the capital S is equal to 10. Okay, I have just written this int output is equal to a string plus 5. Here a string that is nothing but this one that has 10 value. And 10 plus 5 is equal to 15. So it's valid to write like this, because in this context it's okay. There is no complaint by the compiler itself. So it's valid to write. And then finally what I'm doing, I'm just printing into this console window. Output b value, output or this value, sorry, output for this value, not be this value. Okay. So this value should get printed. Okay, this value should get printed. So I'm just write like this, then this value should get printed. Then what I'm going to do, if I just go and write like this, int string is equal to 20, it is giving us error, because this string that start with the small s is the reserved keyword. We cannot use a variable. That's what it's complaining over here at syntax writing itself. Okay, so int string is equal to 20, it's invalid to write. Let me comment this. But it's valid to write if you are going to add verbatim identifier to it. So int string. So I'm just going to just prefix at the rate symbol, and the same string is equal to 20. It's valid to write with the verbatim identifier. And finally, I'm just printing this at the rate string into this console window. Okay, Let me execute this program and see the output. Okay, so output got appear into this console window. If you see a string versus a string demo got printed concept one. So here what we were doing, we were just printing hi and hello for the S1 and S2. So it got printed hi and hello, right? Right line S1 and S2. So it got printed whatever the value assigned to these variables S1 and S2. And if you see, right, so it got printed S1 is string, and what is the type? System.string. Similarly, S2 is string type system.string. So both alias and the full qualified name is pointing to the same thing, system.string. Right? That's what it is. So nothing but this S1. S1 is nothing but the small string. Is an alias of system.string. It's pointing to the system.string. Okay. So that is the concept number one. Now, if you see this concept number two, here what we are doing, we were seeing this name of system.string, and we said that it's valid to write. So it's compiled successfully, and the system.string name of the name got printed into console window. And if you see this console concept number two, it got printed a string because we have written name of a string system.string. It got printed a string. The string got printed. Okay. Now, if you see the concept number three, where we have defined string to be an integer. That's what we wrote. Int a string is equal to 10 and int output is equal to a string per plus 5, and it's valid to write. That's what its output got printed into this console window. You see the output got printed as a 15, right? 10 plus 5 is equal to 15, so output 15 got printed. And then if you see, I have used this verbatim identifier, a string. This one is nothing but reserve keyword, but we have added this at the rate prefix. It's valid to write like this, and that's what we are just storing this value into this int at the rate string is equal to 20, and then I'm printing. This value got printed as a 20. It's valid to write. Guidelines for a string and a string. In earlier days, we used to write a string that start with a small s to declare variable initialization, and system.string class to use to call any built-in string methods like a string.compare, a string.isNullEmpty, etc. However, Microsoft has started recommending to use of a string that start with a small s that can easily be seen in Visual Studio. What recommendation Microsoft is giving? It is saying use language keyword instead of framework type names for type references, and they have given this ID code IDE 0049. If you see this example shown over here, a string s1 is equal to hi, and if I am going to write a string that starts with capital S dot is null empty s1, if you see here, Microsoft is suggesting in Visual Studio name can be simplified. This is the code IDE 0049. This is the URL. You can see the full description. And if I'm just going to show the suggested version, so it is saying this needs to be converted, right? Name can be simplified. Capital string, it is suggesting use the small string. So we should use the C# language reserved keyword as string. That is the string that start with a small s for our string related need, as it resolves many conflicts by the compiler itself. Now that brings me to end of my session. To sum up, in this video we saw what both strings are, that is a string that starts with a small s and a string that starts with the capital S. We learned what the difference between them. Finally, we saw the guidelines for it. That's all for this video, guys. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends and colleagues, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done already. Thanks for watching. See you next video.